Picture this. You are in a deep state of relaxation, experiencing a renewed sense of calm, and your mind is at ease. Well, this is what acupuncture does with our patients. When we needle them, the minute nerve triggered by the needle sends signal to the brain to put the body into a parasympathetic state or a state of rest and recover. This is why I love acupuncture. And when it comes to mental health and acupuncture for mental health, this is exactly why acupuncture works so well, because it brings the mind into a parasympathetic state or a state of rest and recover. Today, I'm going to share the 15 most used acupuncture points for mental health in clinical practice. However, it's really important to make a TCM diagnosis for each patient and follow it with your protocol when it comes to points. However, you can add 1, 2, or 3 of those 15 points to enhance your treatment and really put that patient in a parasympathetic state. Recent studies have shown that acupuncture is really good when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder or anxiety or depression. And I'll link the studies in the show notes so you can share them with your patients and show them that there is clinical practice absolutely proving that acupuncture rocks when it comes to mental health. Welcome to AcuPro, a show dedicated to making Chinese medicine and acupuncture easy to grasp and fun to learn. Hi, I'm your host, Clara Cohen. I support practitioners and students like you in changing the world one patient at a time. My goal is to share my passion for TCM and empower you to achieve superior patient care. I love to showcase the amazing benefits of acupuncture because, after all, acupuncture rocks. Before we dive into the 15 most acupuncture points used in clinical practice for mental health, I want to talk about the perspective of Chinese medicine when it comes to mental health. So first of all, 70% or more of all chronic physical disorders come from mental emotional trauma. And that's a TCM perspective. I remember when I was in school, I remember thinking, wow, that's really big. But imagine someone that has anger since they were a teenager, and the anger is festering and festering and festering. Eventually, it changes the body at the cellular level, creating a breakdown of the cells, and disorder starts to set in. And that can be physical disorders, right? We see this all the time. When people are so upset for so many days, what happens? The blood pressure starts to rise, and now we have high blood pressure. So the mental and emotional aspect of someone can dictate the physical aspect, and vice versa. If someone is in a car accident and they're in a lot of pain for many weeks and months, eventually settles into a depressive state or hopeless state, and the person is having a hard time coping with the pain because mentally they feel like it's not going anywhere and they're never going to heal, right? So mental and physical are completely related. And this is why acupuncture works so well, because we trigger the body physically to be able to reach the mental state of the person. Now, when it comes to Chinese medicine and mental health, we want to look at 2 things. First, we want to look at the organs that are affected by mental health: spleen, worry, overthinking for a long-standing period of time, liver, anger, frustration, irritability, lung, sadness, grieving, depression, heart. All long-standing emotions will eventually affect the heart. The heart's in charge of joy. When we lose our joy, it means that the heart is depleted, right? So anxiety affects the heart, but all other emotions do. And fear and shock affects kidney. When it comes to other things like gallbladder is in charge of decision making. When someone feels stuck, gallbladder is being affected. When someone is feeling jealous and envious, bladder is affected. When someone cannot distinguish between right and wrong, that's small intestine. Or when someone has a hard time letting go of something, that's large intestine. When someone is really obsessed with narcissistic behavior or is really self-centered, that's a stomach issue, because the stomach is really at the center of our body, right? You can see how it's all related. I love Chinese medicine when it comes to mental health. I have a full free course on understanding the basics of mental health in Chinese medicine. I put the link below. If you haven't watched it yet, it's completely free. Go ahead and sign in and then watch it and let me know what you think. Now let's dive into the 15 most acupuncture points for mental health used in clinical practice. Spleen 5 is probably underutilized in clinical practice. However, it's one of the best points when there is mental and physical fatigue. Remember, the spleen is in charge of sending clear qi to the head for the ability to focus, concentrate, and do mental work. But it's also in charge of muscle and keeping our physical energy up. Spleen 5 is the best point when someone is very fatigued physically or mentally. I ask patients that all the time. When you say you fatigue, is it physical, is it mental, or is it both? When it's both, this is the best point. Now, if it's also physical, we want to raise qi with Ren 6, spleen 6, stomach 36, right? That's really important. And if it's mental only, we want to calm the mind, but raise the mental energy with Do 20 and Kidney 1 to balance the highest point and the lowest point with spleen 5. It is such a powerful point. It's also the best point for overthinkers, and there are many of us out there, right, including myself. So when we overthink, and it takes a lot of our space and fatigue, mental fatigue for the overthinking, spleen 5 is the best point because remember, again, the spleen is in charge of worry and overthinking. And the last one is, it is a really good point when people are anxious and they end up stuttering much more than normal. And that is a good point to add to your protocol as well. Spleen 5 rocks. Spleen 6, which is located 3 tune above the medial malleolus, is one of my favorite points. It is fantastic for many, many reasons, but one of the reasons we are talking about today is mental health. And spleen 6 is the crossing point between the liver, the kidney, and the spleen meridian. And that makes it a powerful point to calm the mind when there's liver action like irritability, impatience, stress, anger, frustration, but also for kidney when there is fear, and for spleen when there's worry and overthinking. This is very common. I see a lot of people in clinical practice who get a lot of anxiety, who gets worried, overthink, get irritable, get frustrated because there are a lot of stress put upon them. And that is the best point to put when there's a lot of stress affecting the mental health and creating fear, anxiety, worry, and overthinking. So you could combine spleen 6 with spleen 5, for example. That's a great combo as well. I love spleen 6 because it is also a nourishing point to blood. Blood is the material basis of the mind in Chinese medicine. And without blood circulation to the brain, it is really difficult for the body and the mind to connect, and the mind feels overwhelmed. So spleen 6, perfect point to add to your protocol. All my students know that stomach 40 is my favorite point of all time. I love this point because it does so many things, but specifically when it comes to mental health, it is the best point for phlegm in the body. Now, if you remember, phlegm, according to TCM, can be visible or invisible. Visible phlegm is obviously coughing phlegm. It's excess body fat, so like obesity. It's excess cyst. It is ganglion. It's going to be anything that is really thick, like plaque in the arteries. That is also going to be phlegm. However, invisible phlegm is what affects our brain. And that is why stomach 40 is so powerful, because it's really good for anxiety, depression, manic behavior, bipolar. This is a really good point for this because it clears invisible phlegm. Now, according to TCM, when there is depression, for example, there's always liver qi stagnation, which means the person feels stuck. And there's always phlegm because we can't rationalize, we can't get out of that mindset that feels so hopeless. So stomach 40 is a really good point when it comes to looking at depression, specifically added up with liver 3, because liver 3 moves qi, and there's always a liver qi stagnation in some kind of phlegm. There's also other pattern. We have to always do a pattern of diagnosis. There could be blood deficiency, yin deficiency, yang rising, many other patterns. You always want to treat the pattern of diagnosis in TCM, but there are specific points that we truly want to add to the protocol, and stomach 40 and liver 3 has to be there when it comes to depression. When it comes to anxiety, it's the same idea. Stomach 40 works really well with pericardium 6. But those 2 points together are very powerful when it comes to anxiety, for sure. That makes sense, right? If you have a hard time making a TCM diagnosis, it's always good to pick the points that you think are going to be the most powerful for your patient until you can figure out the better or the best diagnosis for that patient and you get more information. Does that make sense? Love stomach 40. My favorite point. When we talk about mental health, Heart 7 has to be part of the whole podcast because it is called Shenmen, the gate of the mind. So it makes sense, right? We have two Shenmen in the body. We have Heart 7 at the wrist, and we have the ear Shenmen in the triangular fossa. Those are the two Shenmen, which are the gate of the mind. Often I like to combine Heart 7 with ear Shenmen to calm the mind because they have the same name, right? Heart 7 is one of the best points for any kind of mental health issues, including anxiety, but specifically insomnia. It is the best point for insomnia. Doesn't matter what kind of insomnia, if it's hard to fall asleep, if it's hard to stay asleep, if it's difficulty in tossing and turning or not sleeping at all, we have to put Heart 7, specifically when it comes to insomnia. Heart 7 is great when there is poor memory, anxiety, any other disorder that is going to affect the mental health, specifically when it affects the sleep issue. That is my favorite point to add to the protocol for sleep. Moving right along to the lowest point on the body, kidney 1, underneath the sole of the foot. It is the only point in the body that actually touches the ground when we're standing up. It is very grounding. This is the most grounding point. I've used it for patients that feel very scattered brain, feeling like their brain is all over the place. There's so many thoughts, too much shattering in the brain, and they just can't calm their mind. And we want to bring it down, ground the person because they feel scattered. They're not grounded. Some patients will actually say that, I don't feel grounded. This is the best point. We can mock saw if we can't needle because the patient's like, I don't know if you want to needle me on the sole of the foot. I have a patient who loves that point. The first time I needled him, I said, are you going to be okay with me needling underneath the foot? He goes, why not? And I'm like, well, it's a lot of nerve endings and it's quite sensitive area. I needled one foot and he literally swore, like he screamed and swore. I was like, are you okay? And he said, it just took me by surprise. Can you do the other one? So I did the other one. And now he requests, he calls it KD1. He's like, I love KD1. It is the best point for me because it calms my mind and I don't feel scattered. So he absolutely loved this point and he feels really grounded when he gets up after the treatment. So this is one of the best points for that. You can combine it with do 20. When people cannot fall asleep, but they're exhausted, they're really tired, they're like, I'm so tired. Then I go to bed and I can't sleep. This is so frustrating because it's a bad cycle, right? You need to sleep. And so the best combo for this is kidney 1 to ground the mind, bring the energy down, but at the same time do 20 to lift that energy because we need to lift the physical energy, right? With spleen 5 and do 20. See how we can combine them? And then we ground the person by calming the mind with Heart 7 for insomnia and kidney 1 to bring the chatter down to the foot. That's a great combo to help people that cannot fall asleep, even though they're very tired. Kidney 1 is fantastic for massaging before bed. We can acupressure it before bed and show patients how to do this so they can be relaxed and fall asleep better. So often I will say to people, specifically because I live in Canada and it's cold, take a warm foot bath so your feet are relaxed before you go to bed and massage the kidney 1 for a couple of minutes and then go to sleep. And that works really well for them. Kidney 4, I think, is kind of like spleen 5. It's underutilized in clinical practice for mental health. I love this point because, again, it's located very close. It's at the ankle, so very close to spleen 5 in a way, except obviously between the Achilles and the medial malleolus. We have a lot of points on the ankle that are great for anything that's relating to mental health. Kidney 4 is one of the best points for phobias. When I have people that are germaphobe or have obsessive compulsive disorders, kidney 4 is really good for that because, first of all, they worry a lot. They have a lot of fear and phobias, right? So spleen 5 would be great because it's great for worrying. Spleen 6 would be great because it's for any kind of mental health affecting the kidney, liver, and spleen, which people that have phobia are very frustrated with everything that they have to deal with. Let's say it's germ. And they also have fear behind it and they worry about it. We can combine spleen 6 and spleen 5 and kidney 4. Great for any kind of phobia. I love that point for that perspective. I use kidney 6 in clinical practice a lot for the reproductive system and balancing hormones. However, it is a really good point when it comes to mental health, specifically for insomnia created from nightmares. When patients have recurring nightmares, not just once in a while, but recurring nightmares can come from trauma, past trauma, that creates nightmares. And of course, they wake up and they can't fall back asleep, and now they have insomnia associated with that. Also, it's really a good point to add when there is anxiety due to past trauma, childhood trauma specifically, that creates fear and anxiety as an adult. Have you gotten your copy of my Acupoint Made Easy book yet? If you're a visual person, you're going to love it. I have put my passion for acupuncture into creating a fun, illustrated guide of all acupuncture points with their function, location, depth, and angle of insertion, including special points categories, extra points, cupping, moxa, and all my years of clinical pearls. You can download the digital version on any device, and it comes with many video links to complement it. Or if you'd prefer the hard copy version like me, you like to look at real books, the publisher ships it all over the world. Before you invest in it, I want to make sure that it is everything you were looking for in a fun guide for acupuncture points. So you can download the sample of all the hard points to see if the format of the book is what you truly were looking for. Listen to what people who invested in Acupoint Made Easy have to say. I adore the book. It has answered so many questions on my mind and is logically and clearly laid out. It was a great investment. That made my day. Absolutely love this. Thank you for thinking outside the box. I have ADD and I'm easily distracted. You made it easy to retain this required information for acupuncture students in different ways for better understanding and memory. You rock. That also made my day because that's the whole point of creating a book and being on social media and helping support everyone, students and practitioners, because I feel like a lot of us felt lonely when we were on our own. So the internet has provided such a great resource for all of us. Check out the links in the show notes below or go to my website, acuproacademy.com, and click the shop tab on the menu bar to invest in your copy today. PC6 is such a great point to show patients how to acupressure at home when they need it because it's on the wrist. So such an easy point to use. And of course, we use it a lot for anxiety. It's one of the best points for anxiety, specifically when it affects the digestive systems, like heartburn and acid reflux, and creates stomach knots that is coming from the anxiety. It's also a great point for irritability and manic behavior as well. But I use it mostly, and I think all of us use it mostly to calm the anxiety, specifically combined with REN 17, because REN 17 is more local in the area where people, when they are anxious, feel like they can't take a big deep breath and they feel like they have palpitation and their heart is feeling squeezed up, right? So it's a local point in the center of the chest. REN 17 and PC6 with stomach 40. Perfect combination for anxiety. That's my go-to for anxiety. Treating the pattern still and the patient as a whole, but PC6, stomach 40, and REN 17, it works like a charm. Have you ever used gallbladder 24 for mental health specifically? I don't think a lot of people do. Gallbladder 24, which is on the rib area, is used mostly for physical issues, but not necessarily for mental issue. One of the best things to look at when it comes to this point is lack of direction, lack of purpose. So when I have patients that feel like they just don't know what to do, they can't make a decision, they have no motivation, lack of purpose, lack of direction in life, this is a really good point, specifically combined with GB34, because GB34 is the best point for decision making. GB34 with GB24 is a great combination to make decision and being able to find our purpose and our direction in life. This is really great when people feel really lost. When it comes to anger, irritability, annoyance, frustration, feeling like we're going to explode and the volcano is going to burst out of our head, liver 2 is the best point for that because it brings liver yang down, right? Liver is related to anger and frustration, irritability, And usually it starts with liver qi stagnation. Liver qi stagnation comes from stress, and then we're tight, we're tense, and then more stress is put upon us, and a lot of people will start to explode, and that's liver yang rising, like a volcano effect, like I said. So liver 2 brings the liver yang down. I've had parents asking me, can you help with my anger? I come home, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed, and then my kids come, and then I get all frustrated, and I yell at them all the time, and I feel like the worst parent in the world because I'm yelling at my kids. This is a really good point to calm the mind, because people are so stressed that they explode, and it's not how they want to behave. So liver 2, bring the liver yang down. Calm everybody's mind. Liver 3 is the best point to move qi, right? It relaxes us when we're stressed. And when we're stressed, we feel frustrated, impatient, annoyed. I had a patient one time, I said, are you stressed? And she goes, no, not at all. It's just everybody around me is so stupid. And I said, is everybody around you stupid? She goes, yeah. And I'm like, really? She goes, okay, maybe I'm irritable and I'm stressed, right? So when we're irritable, frustrated, annoyed easily, or we feel moody, a lot of moodiness, liver 3 is a perfect point for that. Now, if there's a lot more anger, we wouldn't combine it with liver 2 and liver 3, because now it's not just frustration and irritability. It becomes into anger or rage. Then we want to combine both. When there is depression, there's always liver qi stagnation as an underlying pattern according to Chinese medicine. So we have to do liver 3 to be able to move qi with other points, because we still have to do a full diagnosis. But adding stomach 40 with liver 3 is a good start when it comes to depression, which is a big, big disorder that needs to be addressed a lot more. And if you didn't know, I have an online course addressing depression in depth, insomnia, anxiety, that has all TCM treatment in it. Link is in the show notes. Of course, REN 17 has to be here. REN 17 is the local point in the center of the chest that is best when it comes to anxiety. And when people have anxiety or panic attack, they can't breathe. It's opening the lung, relaxing the lungs, and it's calming the mind, and it's calming the heart. So when there's palpitation, it reduces palpitation and calms the whole body. REN 17, very, very useful when it comes to anxiety, specifically combined with stomach 40 and pericardium 6, for example. That is very good combo. I have a patient who I did this point on, and she cried for 2 days. She cried for 2 days nonstop when I did REN 17 on her. After that, she felt like a weight had been lifted off her chest. She could breathe again. Do 20 is the highest point on the head. So it's closest to the top of the heaven, the sky. And so it's really a perfect point for mental health. It is twofold, which not many points in the body do this, but this acupuncture point specifically, if we needle it towards the nose, which means with the flow of the due meridian, we are going to lift the energy. We are going to tonify the energy for people that feel like they're completely exhausted, maybe mentally, right? So if you combine do 20 with spin 5 is great when there is mental fatigue, and do 20 needle towards the nose, you're lifting that mental fatigue. However, do 20 can go also the opposite way, which is needling towards the back of the head, which means against the flow of the meridian. And that is to calm the mind where we can't fall asleep, when there is insomnia. So now we want to combine do 20 with heart 7 because there is insomnia and the person cannot sleep and they have so many thoughts up in the head. Now, remember, if you combine kidney 1, the lowest point on the body, and do 20, the highest point of the body, this is perfect to help people that cannot fall asleep but are exhausted, right? Because the mind, the chatter is all in the brain, but they're exhausted and they can't fall asleep. Perfect combo. Extra acupuncture point, yin tongue. I think all of us have received that point, love that point, in between the eyebrows. It is the third eye chakra in Ayurvedic medicine. I love yin tongue. I have to tell you a story. When I was back in school, we had exams, And the second year, when we learned to needle, we asked the teacher if we could do yin tongue on each other during the exam to calm our mind. So we did yin tongue on each other before the exam, and he said, make sure before you leave, you put the needle in a shirt container. You know, when your brain is full of exam, you finish your exam, you get out. I left and I went downstairs to the coffee shop to get a tea. And I'm ordering my tea, and the person behind the counter goes, you have a needle on your forehead. Oh my God. I started laughing and I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I'm in acupuncture school. I went back upstairs, removed, put it in the shirt container, but that was so funny. So I was very calm apparently, but I had forgotten. That's the story for the day. But yin tong, we can use it all the time on all patients that need to calm their mind when there is worry, overthinking, when there is anxiety, when there is all this chatter in the brain. It's also the point for enlightenment. This is a really good point to be enlightened. If you're going to meditate, this is a very good point to focus on. Close your eyes and focus between your eyebrows. Perfect point. Yin Tong totally rocks. Extra acupuncture point Anmian is such an easy point to show patients to massage and acupressure before they go to bed because it is absolutely fantastic for insomnia. We can do kidney 1, heart 7, and Mian together for insomnia. Perfect combo. And it's easy to acupressure and it's easy to massage. So I like to show patients how to use it when they are at home before they go to bed. I could not talk about acupuncture point for mental health without mentioning the Buddha's triangle. It is one of my favorite things to do in clinical practice is to use those 3 points which form a triangle on the wrist, lung 9, heart 7, and pericardium 6. It's the perfect triangle to calm the mind when there is anxiety, but also for depression. And one of the things that I like to use it for is repressed emotions. A lot of patients have repressed emotions. You could see that they're very flat in their answer. They don't share anything personal, specifically emotional at all. So you could see that as you work with the patients, and eventually they might open up, but it's really good for people with repressed emotion. I think most people in the world, everyone in the world has some kind of repressed emotion or past trauma that they're keeping inside, and then maybe they're not even aware they're repressing the trauma. This is a really good combo. Those 3 points, the Buddha's triangle, fantastic, absolutely rock when it comes to mental health. There are so many more acupuncture points we can use when it comes to mental health, but what's key is to make a TCM diagnosis and follow it, plus add the points that we were talking about. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly hope you benefited from this episode, and I would love for you to share it with a friend that may benefit from it as well. Follow the show, leave a review, and if you want more, go to my website, acuproacademy.com. I have tons of resources there with treatment protocols, case study, free courses, and so much more. And connect with me on all social media at Acupro Academy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn and TikTok. And no matter what, keep rocking it using TCM. Please listen to the disclaimer because the AcuPro Show podcast and material shared through AcuPro Academy, which is a subdivision of Natural Health Sense Incorporated, are designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. The utilization of information from this podcast or any associated material is at the user's discretion and risk. This content is not meant to replace the guidance of an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, medical doctor, physician, or any qualified professional, nor is it a substitute for proper diagnosis or treatment. Users are strongly advised not to ignore or postpone seeking medical advice for any existing medical condition with their healthcare professional regarding any health concerns.